everyone, welcome back to another Creatively Crafted Life video. My name is Melanie and this is another installment in my Use Your Scraps series. So if you've been following along, you know that I've already sorted through all my scraps. I separated out my pattern paper or pattern cardstock from my plain cardstock, and what you see here is a bunch of patterned cardstock. I have more up here, so I still got quite a bit. You're also looking at a Cheez-It container, and I bet you're wondering, what does a Cheez-It container or box have to do with pattern paper? So this is a box that you can get at the Dollar Tree, right? You know how the Dollar Tree sells snacks, and they're usually in a smaller size than what you would get at the grocery store. So I indulged and bought a package of these. And when I was finished, I was looking at it and thought this would be a fantastic size for a little junk journal. So I'm thinking like this would be the front cover, here would be the spine, and then the back cover. And so what I want to do is make some signatures or come up with a way to bind the cardstock into here and cover this up and make a little junk journal that I can use for, you know, just random thoughts or quotes or something along that matter. So I am going to do a little bit of figuring out, see how I'm going to make this work, and I will be back to show you what I'm going to do. Okay, so the first thing I did was trim the flaps off. So now I've got the foundation of my book, and this is 5.5 by 4 1/4. And so then I looked at my cardstock and found the paper that would most easily fit within there, and I've got two sizes. So this size here I believe is 4 by 5 1/4, and look at it, just fits perfectly. So this is kind of the base page that I'm going to look for, and I don't have to trim any of these down because they already work. Now this is going to be a truly junk journal in that it's going to be a hodgepodge of colors, etc., and I'm okay with that because that's the whole point of this. These ones here are pretty close, but they are just a little bit larger, so I'm going to trim these down to fit this size. These ones here are smaller, so they're quite a bit smaller. I'm not sure how I'm going to use this. I've got a lot of the same color, and I think that might be a little bit too much, so I'm not too sure about that. Now these ones here are plenty long enough, and so I might trim some of these down as well. I'm also going to go through some of my books that I purchased for junk journals and intermix some of that in there, and who knows what else I might throw in. But the first thing I'm going to do is trim these all down to size. Now just based on this alone, you can see I've got plenty of space left still in this spine. Now I think how I'm going to attach it, I'm going to have a little bit of space in between, so I might start with this and see where we end up. I'm not sure yet. Okay, so I think I've decided on how I'm going to do the binding. I'm just taking regular printer paper, and I'm taking about 3 sheets at a time, and I'm sticking it in so that the 8.5 side goes here, and this is the 11. And then I'm just scoring at 2 inches all the way down, and then at 6 inches. And it seems to me that I can get away with doing 3 sheets at a time because the paper is so thin. And it looks like the scoring is going all the way through. I have no idea how many of these I'm going to need, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be a lot. So I am just going to do a bunch of these, and then we'll see where we end up. Okay, so now I'm taking my scored paper, and this is the 2 inch and this is at the 6, and I want to trim this off at 8 inches. So I'm just taking a few sheets at a time, making sure it's lined up, and measuring and trimming. Okay, so at this point you should have basically an 8 inch wide by 11 inch piece of paper. We're now going to trim it at 4 inches. Tuck that in. Okay, so you should now have a 4-inch wide strips by 11 with a score at 2 inches. And we're gonna now turn this around and trim at 5.5. I think it's 5.5. Let me just double check. Sorry, 5.25. Good thing I checked. And you'll just continue doing this until you are left with 4 by 5.25 scored pieces of paper. That's copy paper. Okay, so now we just want to score these or fold them in the middle. You can do multiple sheets at a time. And I just realized that if this paper is so light that if you don't have a scoring tool, you could probably easily just fold these without having things pre-scored. And just to line up the lines of the paper and then give it a fold. And again, because this paper is so lightweight, I'm able to fold multiples at one time, which is great because it speeds up the process. It doesn't need to be terribly precise because of how we're going to use this for the binding. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to go through your cardstock and or your scraps, and you want to match them up. So either with coordinating pieces of paper, or if you happen to have 2 of the same, you want to match them up. So the way I'm looking at this is I will probably be doing a 2-page spread with whatever item I'm going to be using the journal for. So I've just aligned them up. I'm not going to be too particular about this or worry too much about it if it doesn't match up exactly, because this is supposed to be kind of a junk journal feel. So then what you want to do is you want to take one of your folded pieces of copy paper, okay, and you want to open it up. So you want to work on the inside of the fold, and you're going to apply glue all the way around the edge. You don't need to put tons of glue on there, but a little bit around all the edges is good. Okay, so again, like I said, I'm not putting a ton, just a little bit, and I opted to use glue just because of economics. If there is any orientation to your paper, you want to think about that. So you don't want to put one way and one the other way. That wouldn't be a good thing. And then you want to go as close to the fold as possible. But more importantly is that you get it as straight as possible. And if you've got a little bit of overhang, that's okay. We'll trim these up later. Okay, so it's going to look like that. And then you're going to take the other side, do the same thing. Now I like to, or I'm thinking, because I've actually never done this before, I'm thinking that I want to leave a little bit of a gap in between. It will show white, but I can always come in with a marker or something afterwards and cover that up if it really bothers me, but I'm not anticipating that it will. But I think if I just leave a little bit of space when this folds, it gives this cardstock layer a little bit of breathing room. So you're going to keep doing this through all of them until you have all your sets of 2 done. You will want to leave at least 1 loose for the front and 1 loose for the back, and I will show you what we're going to do after we get all of these sets put together. Okay, so I was thinking about how can I get smaller sheets of paper in my book other than the 4 by 5.25, and I came up with a couple different ways. Well, basically it's one way to insert these in, but they have 2 slightly different results. So this is the page that I've been working with. This is the smaller size. It is about 5 by 3 3/4. So there's that. And then I also have some 4 by 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I'm going to put these together. Now, I did mention earlier that I was going to go through some of my old books and cut up some pages to fit in. These are obviously not cardstock weight, but I'm okay with that because the opposite side of it is going to be cardstock, so it will be thick enough when all is said and done. I also mentioned earlier to watch the orientation of how you place items in your little signatures, and I think there can be an exception made for things like writing. So in this case, the writing's not really significant, so it's okay to flip this upside down, especially if you think it's going to be detracting, as in people are going to try and read this, then you may want to flip it upside down so to discourage that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I have a bunch of those. Some of my single cardstock pieces left, and then these little pieces. So this is what I'm going to do. I have trimmed some more copy paper. This is 3 3/4 by 1 1/2, and basically we're going to do the same thing as we did with the other ones, is we're going to fold these in half like so. Okay, and then this is 4 by 4, and I just folded it in half at 2 inches. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our 3 3/4 by 5, and we are going to fold that in half. Okay, just like so. And then we're going to take the small little hinge, that's what I'm calling it. I don't know what else to call it, but that's what I'm calling it. And we're going to apply a little bit of glue, just like we've been doing all along, to one side. Okay. And then we're going to take the fold side and kind of nestle that into the fold of the hinge. Just like so. So you should have something that looks like this now. Now this side does not look very attractive, and so what I'm opting to do on this side, obviously you could leave it if you wanted to, but I'm going to actually cover it with a corresponding with a different piece of scrap paper. So all I did was I took some of my 3 3/4 by 5 pieces and just cut them in half so that I could cover this up. And it's more important to align it on the hinge side than on the open side, because we can always trim any excess bits that stick out like this off afterwards, which is what I'm going to do now. It's like a little bit of a overhang. And of course you could use a paper trimmer if you wanted to, which I may end up doing it because I can't cut worth beans. Okay. So now we have something that looks like this. What we're going to do is we're going to take our large hinge, and I've been just recreasing these again just to make sure they have a really good crease in them. It's a little bit easier for me to see what I'm doing. And then what I'm going to do is on the back side of this, I'm going to add some glue. Just like so. And then we're just going to butt that into the fold. Okay, so now we have something that looks like this. Okay, so then we're going to take whatever we're going to put on this side, and we're just going to go over both pieces. Just like we've been doing all along. Okay, then we're going to fold this over. Now there's a little bit of a ledge here because of the folded cardstock. I don't know if you can see that. So it doesn't hurt if I get glue under there, but that is, it doesn't hurt if we get a little bit of glue under there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So now our little signature opens with this little flap in the inside. So that's that hinge. So this is with a folded 3 3/4 by 5 inch. So now let me show you what we can do with a 4 by 4. So we're going to take our 4 by 4 piece. It's actually very similar idea. The only thing difference is that we're not going to have a fold out, right? So add some glue, figure out what side of the cardstock you want to have show, attach, flip, and now we're just going to attach some on this side. And I'm really trying not to overthink this because I really do want this to be kind of junky. If that makes sense. The most important, like I said before, is to make sure the part on the hinge side is aligned. The rest we can always trim to even that out if need be. This one looks okay. So that's the 4 by 4. Now we just do exactly the same thing. Take our larger piece, take the back side of the hinge. Now I have no idea how many of these I'm going to need in order to complete this book. I'm just kind of playing it by ear, so we'll have to see. I'm also going to pull some of my I'm also going to pull some of my cardstock that has no pattern, so just solid cardstock, and start intermixing with this because I'm just about out of pattern cardstock. Okay, and then on this side, I think we're going to add a piece of this. And there we go. So this one will open up. We'll have a 4 by 4 flap, and then this side. Okay, so I'm going to keep working through this, and I'll let you know when I'm done. Okay, so this is what I put together so far. If you look, it looks like I have enough to fill this book. But if I squeeze this tight, you'll see I probably still have about 1/4 inch. So I'm not sure yet if this is going to be enough, but I think I'm going to move on to the next step, just to get a better feel for whether or not this is going to work or not. So the next step is to sort these into the order that you want. So for instance, I have quite a few that have the inserts and the small ones, and then I have some that are just plain. So I want to mix those up and get them in the right order, and then we're going to start gluing them together. Okay, so I have all of these glued together, and now what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 and we're going to glue these sides together. So it's going to open like this. So this and this will glue, and then if I need to trim anything, we're going to do that as well. And we're going to go all the way through pairing up some of the signatures. And again, the main important thing here is to line up the hinge part. And also you're going to want to watch if you have anything that needs to be oriented in a particular direction, that you get them going the right way. Okay. So now it should look something like that. So I'm just going to go through the entire stack until I'm done. I'm only going to do pairs at a time, so 2 at a time, and then we'll come back and we'll, you know, group them up yet again until the whole thing's bound. Okay, so now I have pairs glued together. So as I said before, it's going to look like this. Now we're just going to take the 2 pairs and join them, go all the way through. I keep cleaning up the edges as I go along. Yeah, and hopefully there's not going to be too much variance when we're done. I will show you when that's all finished. Okay, so my book is all bound together. I'm really happy with how this turned out. It's really nice too, is the way it is currently situated. I can lay almost all of this flat. It might be a little bit hard to work on these pages, but I think if I put something underneath here while I'm working, I can make it work. So here's the problem I ran into though. So my original thought was that I was going to adhere this to the front cover of the book, right? And then adhere this to the back cover of the book, and that's great. So if we picture this as being bound, this is what happens. See how this shifts in? So it would not be able to open the way that I would want, because the minute you get to the middle of the book, it kind of contracts in on itself. See, so then I thought, okay, well, what happens if I just attached it to the end on one side? So this comes across, right? So this works great, right? I can see all of this, everything looks good until I get to the back part, because remember this will be adhered, and that doesn't work. So plan B is to use some fabric, and I have some of these single fat quarters from Walmart. I think they're the, well, that's the Waverly brand, and this says, I don't know, what does it say here? Creative Cuts. So I was thinking, well, maybe I could use that to kind of do the binding. And so what I was doing was playing around with how that would work. So to simulate this, I've got a piece of ribbon, and I'm just going to stick that in the middle and kind of temporarily affix this. So you can see there's a little bit of a gap here. It's not too terribly tight. And so if you picture now, this has the cover on it and then a fabric spine. What'll happen, I don't know if you can see this, this moves and gives, so I should be able to open all the way to the end. Now it does get a little bit tight here, but that's just because of the way the fabric gathers, but I think that will be totally doable. So I think that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to use probably the black for the spine, and then I just need to come up with a way to cover this. Now what I might do in the spine, I'm not sure yet, is attach this in there. We'll see how it plays, if it needs that stability or not, or if I'm better off just leaving it as plain fabric. But that's going to be the next step. So I'm going to cut this apart, use this for the front cover, use this for the back, and we'll see what I come up with for the spine. Okay, so I had a couple more pieces of scraps that happen to be big enough to cover the front, so that's what I am going to do. I think I'm going to use a combination of liquid adhesive as well as some score tape or red line tape, just to make sure it sticks down really well. I've got some red line tape all the way around. You can see I've peeled up a little bit already, but not the whole amount, and that's just so that will help me lay the paper on without it sticking right away. And then I put some liquid glue across the middle. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to align this in one of the corners, and I'm actually, because I've got a little bit of space, I'm actually going to go over the edge so that I can trim it afterwards to be flush. Okay, so once that's affixed, then you can just peel the sticker or the backing off the tape, and we can give that a good press, and now it's just a matter of flipping it over and trimming it out on the back side. I'm going to do the other piece and then I will be back. Okay, so for the fabric I need it to be at least 5 inches wide, and I want to give it a little bit extra so I can fold over the edges so that I can have a nice clean edge on it. So I'm thinking maybe 6 inches wide, and the top part I only need about a 1/2 inch extra, I think, or an inch maybe. So this is, what is this, 5 1/2, I think, or 5 1/4. Yeah, 5 1/4, so or almost 5 1/2. So if I go 6 inches wide by 6 inches, so a 6 by 6 square I think will do me well. So I'm gonna pull out a ruler and trim this up and iron this fabric, and then I will be back to show you what I'm going to do next. Okay, so here I have the cover. I've just laid it out on my paper. So this is the orientation that I want this to go in. I want the fabric to go this way. And so what I want to do is just press this over and under, and I thought what I would do is just clip this so that when I go to the sewing machine, I know exactly where I want my seam to go. So just like that, I'm going to pull this out, put it on top. When I come back, I am going to be using a sewing machine, I think. Now, you could totally do this with just glue or sticky tape or whatever, but I think it'll look really cool if I stitch. So I am going to bring out my sewing machine for this. Okay, so that's going to go there. So let me go and press this, and then I'll show you what I'm planning to do for the sides. Okay, so you can see I pressed over about the same amount on either side. I'm going to take out my sewing machine now, and I am going to do the top and the bottom with a rolled hem, I guess is what they call it. So where you just go down and then over again and then stitch that down. For the ones going down the side, you're not going to see that. At least I don't think you're going to see it, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to stitch straight down. I don't have my sewing machine set up to record, so I'm just going to go off video and do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I finished sewing everything. Like I said, I did a rolled hem on the top and the bottom. I just stitched down the side, and then I thought I had that black ribbon out anyways, that it would be kind of fun to have a closure. So I just stitched down approximately in the middle. Again, I'm not worried too much about being precise with this. It's just a fun journal. So the next step that we need to do is we're going to put that aside, and we're going to attach the covers to the book, and we're going to use the same hinge system to do that. Now, the covers are slightly larger than the book, so we just want to align the back where the hinge will be with everything else, and then center it somewhat this way, and hopefully everything will work out for the best. And then we'll deal with attaching the fabric spine. Because this is going to possibly have a lot of tension on it, I am going to affix the hinges with some score tape, or rather, I mean red line tape. So that's what I'm going to be doing here. And now we'll just do the other side. Okay, so now the cover is attached. We will need to cover these pages yet, and the same with the back, but this is attached. So now comes the fun part, is trying to figure out where to place this with enough give on the back side. And I think what I'm going to use is some washi tape initially, and then I will use some red line tape to affix these. But I need to figure out where the right spot is. Okay, you guys, here goes nothing. I think 1.25 inches overlap is what I need. So what I'm going to do is I am going to place some tape right along this edge here, as well as the edge on the other side. And I'm counting on this tape to really hold this fabric down. We'll see if we'll see. 1.25, we're going to put another piece here. Hope that's okay now. Yeah. And what I'm going to do is put a bead of this along the edge of the fabric. Okay, and then I think what I'm going to do before I try to adhere this is just in pencil draw a line at 1 1/4 inches so I know where to align my fabric. Okay, so hindsight's 20/20. Don't peel this off until after you get this layer on. Make your life much, much easier. Okay, we're just going to give that, and actually, where's my bone folder? Because we really want this to be stuck good. Now this time, I don't think I have a choice but to remove the tape because I don't think we're going to be able to see it afterwards or access it afterwards. So this is my little book. We're going to finish off the inside. Okay, so that is my book. I think the only thing that's left is maybe to trim down the ribbon. I think it's plenty long enough. Yeah, plenty long enough. So there's my little junk journal. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm sure there are a lot of videos out there that get into bookbinding, but the purpose of this video was more to give you an idea as to what to do with your scraps. I personally love how it turned out, and I can't wait to get started and using it. Until next time, happy crafting.